Hello everyone and welcome to the World Cup of Wrestling, and we are kicking things off here with our opening match as we have the Sultan, going up against Hugo Savinovich. This is Qatar versus Ecuador. So I've had to be a little bit liberal with some of these because I am using the full amount of teams that have qualified for the real World Cup. And to do so is going to be quite tricky. So we've had to be a little bit liberal here and there. Hugo Savinovich, he is a wrestler, but he was also a former WWE commentator and Lucha Underground commentator on the Spanish announce table. So you may recognize him from there. He is actually from Ecuador. However, the one that's a little bit more liberal, I suppose, if you look at it that way, is the Sultan. Now, the Sultan, of course, if you don't know, was played by who went on to become Rikishi. However, we will class him as a separate character here because I don't think the commentators have ever sort of spoke about the fact that Rikishi was the Sultan and so forth. So he would be classed as a new character. But he was billed as from the Middle East. So I couldn't find any actual wrestlers from Qatar. So because he was billed from the Middle East, like I said, I have to be a little bit liberal somewhere because there was just no other options, to be honest. So the Sultan is in as our member of Qatar. So yeah, we've got some great matches coming up for you across all these different nations. Like I said, we're going to stick with the real nations that are in the real World Cup. And we're going to follow the same fixture list as well. So yeah, Ecuador versus Qatar to start things off. What we've got next up, we've got England versus Iran is our next match. That'll be Will Ospreay versus the Iron Sheik. Then we've got Senegal versus the Netherlands, as we have a guy that I've never heard of before, Rouge, who is actually a MMA fighter, but it's the best we could do. Going up against the Netherlands, who is Malachi Black, and then of course we're going to have USA versus Wales. We're going to have a little bit of Kurt Angle versus Mark Andrews. That's our first couple of days worth of matches coming up for you. Both of these guys, I believe, are making their debuts here. I don't think I've used Hugo Savinovich at any point in time. I can have a quick check. No Hugo Savinovich, so he gets added on to the ranking system as well. And this is our way. I was thinking that we were struggling to find any new people to get us up to that magical 1,000 Savinovich. Sorry, I got distracted. That's not how you spell it, is it? No, I cannot spell it. Savinovich. Savinovich, there we go. Okay, yeah, what was I talking about? I got distracted. Oh yeah, I was trying to figure out how we're going to get up to 1,000 people in the ranking system, but it's stuff like this that helps us. We've got several people debuting, people that I've never heard of before. I've really had to delve into some weird and wonderful wrestling scenes. I spent an hour this morning Googling and looking through all these documents and news articles and websites about pro wrestling in Denmark. I have really put a lot of time and effort into this. You'll be surprised. I've had to create some of these wrestlers myself, which means they are going to be terrible. And before you ask, no, this Hugo Savinovich was not one that I created myself. This is actually a lot better than I can create, but there you go. But yeah, this is a big one. First points up for grabs here. Ecuador versus Qatar. So we're going to do it the same format as the World Cup in the Football World Cup, or the Soccer World Cup, if you will. So we'll have a group stage for every single nation. So Group A, for example, is Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands. Everyone plays each other once, and the top two go through. And that'll be based on your head-to-head as well, if it's equal points. And then we'll go into the knockout stage afterwards. So I'm sure you'll get the hang of it as it goes along. If you are struggling with the format and so forth, check out the description down below. I'll put a link to the spreadsheet that basically explains everything. But be careful, if you're watching this in the future, there may be some spoilers on there. I try and generally put the spoilers on, I put different rounds on different tabs along the bottom so you can see you don't go too far. So the Sultan now brings Hugo back up into that big Samoan drop. Will that be enough for the Sultan? He drops into the pin. Qatar looking for the first victory of the SWE World Cup of Wrestling. It's not to be the case. Hugo Savinovich was able to get out of that one. The Sultan now locking in that camel clutch submission on Hugo Savinovich. And no, Hugo able to break free, dropping the Sultan. The Sultan of Swing. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Sorry, I got distracted. It's just stuck in my head, that song, constantly every time I say the Sultan. Nice spinning heel kick there by Hugo. Then in with a moonsault for the middle rope as well. Boot in the face there by the Sultan. Hugo Savinovich now heading up to the top. And he's going to dive with a big headbutt right to the shoulder. Incredibly painful. There's the pin for the 1, the 2... And no, it's only a 2 count still. Nice drop kick in the back of the head. Nice wrenching away at the arm. And now Hugo Savinovich once again heads up to the top. Looking for the headbutt, completely missed. The Sultan now looking to go down at the leg, but not quite the case. Nice dragon screw there by the Sultan of Swing. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. The Sultan now going to drop his body weight across the arm. Big leg drop. Nice dragon screw. Nice take there by Hugo, straight into the pin for the 1, the 2, and oh my god, almost the 3, not quite. Not freaking quite yet. And there's a Samoan drop now by Hugo, wow. Talk about taking one from your opponent's arsenal. That sounded incredibly rude. Savinovich with a big spike. Will that be enough to get the first point in this competition for Ecuador? No, again the Sultan able to kick out. Wow. The Sultan of Swing doing incredibly well here. Hugo now with that big leg drop. I have to have his name in front of me, Savinovich. I keep throwing an L in there, I think. Hugo Savinovich now up on the top, stalking the grounded Sultan. Drops, no. Sultan able to avoid. Sultan now drops Hugo with the drop toe hold and locks in the camel clutch submission. The Sultan representing Qatar has Hugo Savinovich middle of the ring, locked in the camel clutch. And still, this match does not end, and now it's the Sultan heading up to the top. What is the Sultan planning here? He is stalking the grounded Hugo Savinovich, who gets dropped with that spike right to the head. The Sultan with a strike in the face, another big chop as well. And a big Samoan drop. There's the pin. Will that be enough for Qatar to pick up the first point of the World Cup of Wrestling? It is indeed the Sultan of Swing. The Sultan picks up the victory for Qatar. Hugo Savinovich representing Ecuador loses the match. And it's 1 point to Qatar. So like I said, you will face off everybody in Group A once. So it's not the end for Hugo. Hugo still has 2 matches to come. One against the Senegalese MMA fighter, Rouge. and one against Malachi Black to come. He'll probably need to win both of those to secure himself a place in the next round, which is not going to be easy to do. The Sultan with one big victory already looks like he might have a strong position in this competition. Malachi Black, I think, would be the favourite for this group, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. And Malachi, of course, will have his first match a bit later on, actually, today. Yeah. Yes, actually, I'll do that, yeah. I'll change things up a little bit. I'm going to change a little bit, because in real life, for some reason, it goes Group A, Group B, Group A, Group B. But I'm going to do all of Group A in one day, just make things a bit more simple. Okay. Yeah, so later on today, then, we will have Rouge Rouge versus Malachi Black as your second match in this World Cup. And I will see you all then, my friends. Good night.